It's getting kind of crazy. Well, it's been crazy, but I know there might be a subsection of people that might be thrown off by the title. It kind of oozes white knight. It kind of oozes pick me. But you got to understand, I'm the type of guy who would have cringed at something like that maybe 10, 15 years ago, because in my personal life, and I based a lot of my interactions with women on my own personal experiences and how I treated them. I would look at a statement like treat women with some type of common courtesy as a goes without saying kind of thing. But I at the time was kind of, immature of my assessment of what it was that like generally meant. Because I looked at it from like extreme point of views. Like if you tell someone you're being racist, for example, you're being prejudiced, you're being discriminatory, their first immediate thought or reaction is to say, no, I'm not, because I know what the definition of that thing looks like. I know what version of myself I would need to tap into to make someone feel excluded for something that they cannot control. And since I've never done this extreme version of what I think this word would mean, I'm in the clear. I haven't done anything wrong. And the same thing can be said when you ask men how they treat women. I'm not beating them and I'm not assaulting them sexually, so I'm in the clear. My opinions about them wouldn't make me more predisposed to this description. How I treat them in relationships or casually with friendships doesn't matter. As long as I'm not doing these two things that are on this checklist, I'm in the clear. And that seems to be the base level standard for how a lot of the general public seems to perceive some of these male celebrities. See, I've been following the Diddy trial, for example. And one of the beautiful things about this trial, despite how bad it all is the fact that I haven't seen nearly as many opinions being made public about this. And I think the primary reason for that is because it's nowhere near as visible as earlier trials that we might have seen and people were able to give their first initial thoughts and reactions to. And I think there's a correlation between the mandatory amount of reading that you need to do to actually have an informed opinion about this case and the lack of opinions that I've seen on the internet about it. You have to read to get to this step, and I'm seeing a lot of people that don't like to read not having opinions, and I think that's beautiful. But one of the things that I was able to find out months before this even started was Kid Cudi actually had his vehicle almost blown up, and he testified to that in court today. Obviously, I'm not happy that Kid Cudi had to go through that experience. I'm not happy that he was harassed and threatened in his dating experience with Cassie. Obviously not from her, but in dealing with her, having to endure Diddy's constant taunting and reactions on the side. What I am happy about is that there is a man to validate the violence. There is a male experience in this conversation, in this case, that helps validate or add validity to the claim that Diddy is a menace. When it comes to cases that involve women specifically, I think there's so many things, too many in fact, that are left up to speculation. It's the reason why people pretended that Chris Brown saying free Tory Lanez was the reason why he was jailed in another country and not because he's just a violent person. Because I don't look at the Rihanna situation and then be like, oh yeah, he's violent because of that. I can look at situations that he's had with other men. Chris Brown's been violent towards his former manager, Mike G, been violent in an altercation with Drake, been violent against Frank Ocean. But for whatever reason, when he shows support for someone that has been violent towards another woman and he has to face the consequences for his actions in another country, the people who don't believe that men who have been historically violent in general, and for whatever reason this time aren't guilty of violence towards a woman, now believe that a label must be the reason why someone's being held accountable. There's no benefit of the doubt being given to someone with no criminal history, with no background in violence, who would be the women in these instances that these guys have to basically be accountable for their actions against, but all benefit of the doubt being given to people that we know for a fact have been violent towards other men in the past. And that underscores another issue with how we look at violence against men, because typically and oftentimes when it happens against another man, we look at it as regular. How do you see video footage of Tory Lanez pressing Travis Scott on a bus, offering a fade as conflict resolution? How do you see that and not think that this dude's probably violent? How do you see video footage of him running down on someone that he asked for a rap battle from, intimidating him from behind a camera, telling him to apologize or else? How do you look at that and not say this dude's probably violent? And I'm talking to the people in the comments who may be agreeing with me right now when I ask this next question. Why would you expect expect men to care about women when they've shown they don't even care about men. And that's generally because male victims don't offer the same threat against misogyny that women victims do. They see a male as victim to something and they look at it as a regular occurrence of crime. They don't look at it as a threat against the foundations or the fabrics of what make me as a person. The consensus from a lot of that side, and you know what side I'm talking about, anybody who grew up with a sibling, you probably have had this experience where you might have been playing with something that belonged to your sibling and they didn't care about it when they weren't using it, but when they saw you using it, they made an issue out of it, and your response probably was something like, "Why are you upset? You're not even using it anyway." I see a lot of that happening when it comes to the men in these situations that don't tend to believe the victims in these cases. They retort with how hard it is on one side as a response to someone bringing up a valid criticism or a complaint about someone that falls within their demographic. Where many male content creators who claim to be impartial have generally leaned towards DDG's side, despite the fact that he openly showed deception by pretending as if he found out he had a restraining order against him on Aiden Ross's live stream, completely ignoring the fact that you wouldn't find out on social media if you had a restraining order against you. You would have already been served before social media ever found out. Pretending like TMZ got knowledge that you had a restraining order against you before you is the funniest shit in the world, and the internet ate it up, eager to vouch for someone they don't even know. And even if there was someone that wanted to retort, "Oh my God, that's not true in every case," it is. You really think that it would make sense for law enforcement to allow a restraining order, which is a lot of the time hard to get in the first place, but enforce an order like that and then not notify the person that it's against, so that in the event that they did go and have contact with the person, they wouldn't have had a chance to know beforehand? Are you crazy? Despite how in all these cases everyone involved has made public violent threats against others, the consensus of many is that as long as I am married to the idea that you are innocent, you validate my inaction. You give me a reason to not do anything. You give me a reason to not change. Believing that Chris Brown and Tory Lanez and Diddy and every single other guy who has an allegation presented against them is exonerated in your mind before you've even seen anything, despite the fact that you have public example of them being violent towards men in the past, gives you reason to change nothing, gives you reason to alter no part of your life, because it's not about me not caring about women. It's not about that. I also don't care about men. I don't care about anything. I just don't want to be bothered. I don't want to be forced to have to change what I'm comfortable with. I don't want to grow out of what's historically been serving me. If there is a path to creating a space for people to receive genuine justice and to be protected in the future against people that happen to fall within my demographic, I'm not trying to hear it if it requires or demands me start tearing away at some of the foundations that serve me. And that goes for women too. There are plenty of women, generally traditional, that despite its objectification, misogyny creates a shelter for them. To give any credit to the fact that men have historically and are currently the most violent creatures on the planet directly conflicts with the safe space you've created in your mind that demands absolutely nothing from you. It makes me think that the Free Chris Brown and the Save DDG and the Free Tory Lanez and the Diddy did nothing wrong, she's a grown woman type slogans would still exist even if there were video evidence, which in some of these cases there actually is. It wouldn't even matter, because it's not about Diddy. You don't care if Tory's free. You don't care if DDG's okay and him and his family and his son get reunited. You don't care if Chris Brown comes back to the States. You don't care about Lil Wayne. You don't care about none of these people. What you're really saying is free you. This isn't about them. This is about you. Freeing them frees you.